The first time humanity witnessed true beauty in the cosmos, it came with a price. Dr. Elena Santos stood transfixed before the holographic display in the Lunar Observatory's main chamber, her dark eyes reflecting the shimmer of an alien transmission that would forever change Earth's destiny. The message had arrived just hours ago, a cascade of light patterns so intricate they seemed to dance, carrying with them a desperate plea that transcended the barriers of language. "Play it again," she whispered to her AI assistant, though she'd already memorized every pulse and pattern. The hologram flickered to life once more, filling the chamber with streams of bioluminescent data that told a story of both wonder and terror. The Aetheri, as they called themselves, were living light. Their civilization had evolved in the crystal forests of the Carina Nebula, where their bodies of pure energy danced between ancient crystalline structures that served as both their homes and their technology. For millennia, they had cultivated their world in harmony, developing art and science that merged consciousness with light itself. But now they were being hunted. Elena's hand trembled as she transcribed another section of the message. The Void Collective, a coalition of species that saw the galaxy as their hunting ground, had targeted the Aetheri for their unique biological properties. The collective didn't just want to study them, they wanted to harvest them, to break down their very essence into weapons and tools. Dr. Santos, the voice of Admiral Chen, broke through her concentration. Elena turned to find the commander of Earth's fledgling space fleet standing in the doorway, her uniform crisp despite the late hour. "The Security Council is waiting. Have you finished the translation?" Elena nodded, gathering her tablets. "It's finished." "But sir," Elena took a deep breath. This was the moment that would define everything. She keyed in a new sequence, and the hologram changed again. Now it showed Earth's history. Not the wars and conflicts they so often focused on, but the other moments. Firefighters rushing into burning buildings, aid workers crossing war zones to help strangers, ordinary people forming human chains to save others from floods and disasters. "We should be different because this is who we are," she said quietly. "Throughout our history, humanity has faced impossible odds. We've stared into the abyss of our own extinction multiple times, and each time we've survived not by running away, but by standing together. The Aetheri don't need our technology. They need our courage. They need our determination. They need our humanity." Admiral Chen nodded slowly. "There's something else you should know. Our analysts believe that if the Void Collective successfully harvests the Aetheri, the technology they gain could make them unstoppable. Today it's the Aetheri. Tomorrow, it could be Earth." The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity's first major decision as a spacefaring species would not be about exploration or diplomacy. It would be about war. About choosing to stand against an enemy that made their most advanced weapons look like children's toys. The UN Secretary-General stood, her face grave. "We need to vote. The choice before us is simple. Do we hide and hope we're not next, or do we stand with the Aetheri and show the galaxy what humanity truly is?" The voting took less than 5 minutes. The result was not unanimous, but it was decisive. Humanity would fight. As the representatives filed out to begin the enormous task of preparing Earth for war, Elena felt a hand on her shoulder. She turned to find Admiral Chen smiling slightly. "Congratulations, Dr. Santos. You're now the head of our new Xenomorphic Communications Division. I need you to learn everything you can about both the Aetheri and the Void Collective. If we're going to fight alongside living light against space pirates, we need to understand exactly what we're dealing with." Elena nodded, her mind already racing with possibilities. "Admiral, do you think we can really do this? Stand against something that terrifies species centuries ahead of us?" The Admiral's smile widened slightly. "Dr. Santos, do you know what I thought when I first saw that message? I thought about how my grandfather used to tell me stories about his village in rural China. How when the river flooded, everyone, even people who barely had enough to feed their own families, would come together to help their neighbors. Not because they had to, but because that's what humans do. She gestured to the hologram, still showing the crystalline beauty of the Aetheri homeworld. The galaxy is about to learn what Earth's children are capable of when we have something worth fighting for. And I, for one, can't wait to show them. As Elena watched the Admiral leave, she turned back to the alien transmission still dancing in the air. Somewhere out there, a civilization of living light was waiting for an answer. Today, humanity had chosen to give them one that would echo across the cosmos. You are not alone. The price of first contact would be high, paid in blood and sacrifice. But as humanity had proven time and time again throughout its history, some things were worth any price. The real work was about to begin. The Terran response. Major Diana Rodriguez had seen a lot of impossible things during her 15 years in the United Earth Defense Force, but nothing quite like this. She stood in the massive underground facility beneath the Atacama Desert, watching as engineers swarmed over what they dubbed Project Thunderbolt, humanity's answer to alien energy weapons. It's absolutely insane. Dr. James Chen said beside her, his eyes gleaming with barely contained excitement. We're about to fight beings that can tear apart light itself, and our solution is to throw rocks at them really, really fast. Diana smiled. Sometimes the oldest solutions are the best ones. The weapon before them looked deceptively simple, a railgun the size of a small building, but with modifications that would have seemed like magic just a few years ago. The projectiles it fired weren't just chunks of metal. They were complex assemblies of specially engineered materials, designed to do the impossible, punch through energy shields that could stop light itself. The Void Collective has never faced anything like this, James continued, pulling up holographic schematics. They've spent centuries perfecting defenses against energy weapons. Their shields are practically impenetrable to lasers, plasma, even exotic particle beams. But kinetic weapons, they consider those primitive, beneath their notice. Diana watched as another test round was loaded into the massive weapon. Their mistake. The entire chamber shuddered as the railgun fired, its projectile breaking the sound barrier before it even left the barrel. On the testing range, the round struck a replica of Void Collective shielding technology, recreated based on the Aetheri's intelligence. The shield flickered and failed, the projectile's unique properties disrupting the very frequencies that kept the energy barrier stable. Primitive doesn't mean ineffective, Diana said quietly. That's what they don't understand about us. Above them, in orbit and beyond, humanity was preparing for war in ways that would have seemed impossible just months ago. The United Earth Fleet, once a handful of exploration vessels, was being transformed. Every ship was being retrofitted with the new weapons, their crews training day and night to master technology that merged humanity's primitive ingenuity with cutting-edge science. But the weapons were only part of the equation. Diana's next stop was the Strategic Command Center in Geneva, where holographic displays showed the full scope of Earth's mobilization. Resources were being redirected on a massive scale, entire industries retooling for war production. But more importantly, humanity was doing what it did best: adapting. Admiral Sarah Chen, no relation to James, stood before the assembled military leaders, her presence commanding attention without effort. The Void Collective expects us to fight like everyone else in the galaxy, to try to match their technology, to play by their rules. We're not going to do that. The holographic display shifted to show training exercises taking place across Earth and its colonies. Soldiers learning to fight in zero gravity, pilots mastering maneuvers that alien ships couldn't predict, engineers developing countermeasures that no advanced civilization would think to defend against. Our greatest advantage, the Admiral continued, is that they think they know what we're capable of. They look at our technology, at our short history as a spacefaring species, and they see children. What they don't understand is that humanity's greatest weapon has never been our technology. It's our ability to adapt, to innovate, to find solutions that no one else would consider. Diana felt a surge of pride as she watched the preparations unfold. In just 2 months, humanity had accomplished what should have taken years. Every nation, Every people had come together with a single purpose. Old rivalries were set aside, resources and knowledge shared freely, all in service of a greater cause. The next demonstration took place in lunar orbit. Diana watched from the observation deck of the UES Normandy as a squadron of the new Wraith-class fighters performed maneuvers that would have torn apart any conventional spacecraft. The ships were ugly by traditional standards, arrays of weapons and armor grafted onto frames designed for pure functionality, but they were deadly. The pilots are using modified gravity manipulation fields, James explained, having joined her for the demonstration. It lets them pull maneuvers that would kill any other species. The G-forces alone would render most alien pilots unconscious. Because we evolved on a high-gravity world. Diana nodded. Another primitive advantage. The fighters demonstrated their capabilities against automated drones programmed to fight like Void Collective ships. The results were devastating. Where alien vessels relied on predictable, computer-optimized patterns, the human pilots were chaos incarnate. They used maneuvers that no rational species would attempt, turning their ships' limitations into advantages. But it wasn't just the military preparing for war. Back on Earth, Diana visited one of the many civilian research centers that had sprung up in response to the crisis. Here, scientists from every field were studying the Atheres message, learning everything they could about both allies and enemies. Dr. Elena Santos, the xenolinguist who had first decoded the Atheres plea for help, led her through the facility. "We're not just learning about their technology," she explained. "We're learning about their culture, their way of thinking. The Void Collective sees them as resources to be harvested. We see them as people to be saved. That difference in perspective is going to be crucial." The research center's walls were covered with translations of Atheri art and poetry, their crystalline script rendered into human languages. "They're beautiful," Diana said softly, reading a passage about the dance of light through the cosmic depths. "They are," Elena agreed. "And they're counting on us to preserve that beauty, to show the galaxy that there's another way besides submission or extinction." The final phase of preparation took place in deep space, beyond the orbit of Mars. Here, the assembled fleet of humanity prepared for its first true interstellar war. Ships of all sizes, from massive carriers to agile fighters, gathered in formations that would have been impossible months ago. Diana stood on the bridge of the UES Hyperion, watching as the fleet performed its final exercises. Each ship carried a piece of humanity's response to the Void Collective's threat, not just weapons and warriors, but hope. Hope for the Atheri, hope for Earth, hope for a galaxy that had forgotten what it meant to stand against tyranny. Admiral Chen's voice echoed through the fleet's communication channels. "Remember what we fight for. Not just for the Atheri, not just for Earth, but for every species that has ever faced extinction at the hands of those who see them as lesser beings. We carry with us humanity's greatest gifts, our courage, our determination, and our absolute refusal to submit to tyranny." The fleet's engines ignited as one, 1,000 points of light preparing to tear a hole through space-time itself. Humanity's response to the Void Collective's threat was about to be delivered, and it would shake the foundations of galactic society. As the fleet prepared for its first faster-than-light jump, Diana thought about all the primitive advantages they carried with them. The railguns that could pierce impenetrable shields. The pilots who could endure maneuvers that would kill other species. The strategies that no advanced civilization would consider. But most importantly, they carried with them the one thing the Void Collective could never understand. The unshakable human conviction that standing up for what was right mattered more than standing down in the face of superior force. The order came, and reality itself seemed to bend as the fleet began its journey to defend a species they had never met, against an enemy that thought them beneath notice. The galaxy was about to learn why you should never underestimate the primitive species from Earth. Operation Lighthouse. Captain Marcus Chen stood at the helm of the UES Hyperion, watching as reality twisted and warped around the fleet. After 2 months of faster-than-light travel, they were about to emerge in the Carina Nebula. 2,000 ships carrying humanity's answer to the Void Collective's brutality. Final jump complete in 3, 2, 1. Reality snapped back into focus, and Marcus felt his breath catch. The Carina Nebula spread before them like a painting made of starlight and cosmic dust. And there, nestled within its stellar embrace, were the crystalline worlds of the Aethery. Multiple contacts. Lieutenant Sarah Rodriguez called out from her tactical station. Void Collective vessels in orbit around the 3rd and 4th planets. Reading: 70+ capital ships. Marcus nodded grimly. And our surprise arrival. A smile touched Sarah's lips. The quantum wake dispersal worked perfectly, sir. As far as their sensors are concerned, we're just another burst of nebula radiation. This was humanity's first advantage. The ability to mask their FTL signatures using technology that the Void Collective considered too crude to be worth monitoring. Sometimes, being primitive had its benefits. All ships, execute Operation Lighthouse, Phase 1, Marcus ordered. Remember your training. Remember what we're fighting for. Across the fleet, crews sprang into action. The human armada split into 3 distinct groups, each with its own crucial role in the coming battle. Strike Group Alpha, led by the Hyperion, would engage the Void Collective's main fleet. Strike Group Beta would secure the evacuation corridors. And Strike Group Gamma, comprised of their fastest ships, would make contact with the Aetheray resistance. The element of surprise wouldn't last long, but humanity intended to make every second count. Launch Wraith squadrons, Marcus commanded. Let's show them what Earth's children can do. The fighters erupted from their carrier bays like a swarm of deadly meteors. Unlike the sleek, energy-based fighters of the Void Collective, these were angular, armored predators bristling with railguns and missile pods. Their pilots, trained in Earth's gravity and augmented by neural interfaces, could pull maneuvers that would kill most alien species. The first Void Collective ship to detect them barely had time to raise its shields before the attack began. Railgun rounds, accelerated to velocities that defied conventional physics, slammed through energy barriers designed to stop lasers and plasma. Missiles carrying warheads that disrupted the very frequencies of their shield harmonics detonated in carefully calculated patterns. The massive alien vessel, accustomed to battles of energy weapons and calculated computer patterns, had no defense against the controlled chaos of human warfare. First blood to humanity, Sarah announced as the enemy ship's shields failed catastrophically. They're launching fighters. The space around the crystalline worlds erupted into battle. Void Collective vessels, their crews finally realizing they were under attack, began to respond with the coordinated precision that had made them the terror of the galaxy. Energy beams capable of cutting through conventional armor lit up the void. But humanity had planned for this. Execute Maneuver Delta 7, Marcus ordered. All ships, activate chaff clouds. The human fleet released clouds of specially engineered particles, another primitive solution that the Void Collective had never encountered. The particles, each one a micro-sized miracle of material science, scattered and absorbed enemy energy weapons, creating corridors of relative safety through which Earth's ships could maneuver. Down on the crystalline surface of the 3rd planet, Major Diana Rodriguez led her drop team through the underground caverns, where the last free Aethery had taken refuge. Their powered armor, designed to interface with the crystalline environment, allowed them to move swiftly through passages that would have been lethal to unprotected humans. Contact, Diana whispered as they approached a massive chamber. The sight that greeted them was beyond anything they had trained for. The Aethery were beings of pure light and energy, their bodies shifting and flowing like aurora borealis given consciousness. The crystal caves amplified their natural bioluminescence, creating a display that made Earth's most spectacular light shows seem crude in comparison. One of the light beings approached Diana's team. Its form coalesced into something roughly humanoid, though still composed entirely of shifting colors and patterns. You came, the Aethery spoke, its thoughts translated by the advanced systems Dr. Santos had developed. When we sent our message, we hoped. but we did not truly believe any would risk themselves for us. Diana smiled behind her visor. On Earth, we have a saying: the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good people to do nothing. We refused to do nothing. Above them, the space battle had evolved into something the galaxy had never seen. Human ships, fighting with tactics drawn from centuries of warfare on Earth, proved impossible for the Void Collective's combat computers to predict. Where alien vessels fought with mathematical precision, humanity fought with controlled chaos. Multiple reactor breaches detected in enemy vessels, Sarah reported. Our kinetic rounds are bypassing their shields completely. They're trying to adapt, but they can't, Marcus finished, because their entire combat doctrine is based on energy weapons and predictable patterns. They don't know how to fight an enemy that thinks like us. The battle wasn't one-sided. Several human ships had already fallen to the Void Collective's devastating energy weapons. But for every Earth vessel lost, 3 enemy ships were disabled or destroyed. The primitive species was proving that determination and ingenuity could overcome technological superiority. In the crystal caves, Diana's team had begun the evacuation. The Aetheri, using their natural ability to merge with crystalline structures, transferred themselves into specially designed containment crystals that would keep them safe during transport. Your species, one of the Aetheri leaders, communicated as it prepared for transfer. You evolved on a world that tried to kill you daily. Yet, instead of becoming cruel, you became protectors. This is why the Void Collective fears you more than they know. Diana checked her tactical display as another group of Aetheri was secured. They fear us. They fear what you represent, a species that advances not through conquest, but through cooperation. One that gains strength not by harvesting others, but by standing with them. You are everything they deny is possible. Above, the space battle had reached its critical phase. The Void Collective, realizing that their conventional tactics were failing, began to concentrate their forces for one massive push. All ships, execute Operation Lighthouse, final phase, Marcus ordered. Show them why Earth's children are called Deathworlders. The human fleet's formation shifted, creating what appeared to be a fatal vulnerability in their lines. The Void Collective, their tactical computers identifying the optimal attack vector, took the bait. Enemy fleet is committing to the attack, Sarah reported. They're exactly where we want them. Marcus allowed himself a grim smile. Spring the trap. The seemingly scattered human vessels suddenly executed a series of coordinated maneuvers that would have been impossible for any other species to perform. Ships twisted and turned in ways that defied conventional space combat doctrine, their crews surviving forces that would have killed most alien species. The Void Collective fleet, committed to their attack vector, found themselves caught in a 3-dimensional crossfire. Railgun rounds and modified missiles struck from angles their shields weren't designed to protect. Ships that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries began to fall, their supposedly impenetrable defenses useless against humanity's primitive weapons. In the crystal caves, the last of the Aetheri were being evacuated. Diana watched as the beings of living light entered their transport crystals, their very essence protected by technology that merged human ingenuity with Aetheri knowledge. The emergence of your species, the last Aetheri communicated before joining its people, will be remembered as the moment the galaxy remembered its conscience. As the human fleet began its withdrawal, carrying with them the rescued Aetheri, the Void Collective was left to contemplate a bitter lesson. Technological superiority meant nothing when faced with the sheer determination and adaptability of a species that had evolved on a world that demanded excellence merely to survive. Operation Lighthouse had succeeded, but this was only the beginning. The galaxy was changing, and humanity's actions today would echo across the cosmos for centuries to come. The primitive species from Earth had shown that sometimes the oldest solutions, courage, determination, and the willingness to stand up for what was right, were still the best ones. The nature of persistence. The Void Collective's response came 3 weeks after Operation Lighthouse. Not as a message, not as a warning, but as a vast armada that twisted out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system. 5,000 ships strong, it was the largest fleet ever assembled in known space. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant, watching the tactical displays with an outward calm that belied the gravity of the situation. The enemy fleet stretched across space like a dark constellation, a testament to the Void Collective's determination to punish the primitive species that had dared to defy them. They'd brought enough firepower to crack a planet, Commander James Rodriguez observed quietly. This is their entire fleet. Sarah's lips curved in a slight smile. Good. That means we only have to beat them once. The past 3 weeks had not been wasted. While the Void Collective gathered their forces, humanity had been preparing. The rescued Aetheri, now safely housed in massive crystal arrays beneath the lunar surface, had shared their knowledge freely with their human protectors. The merger of Aetheri crystal technology with human innovation had produced breakthroughs that would have taken decades to achieve otherwise. But more importantly, humanity had done what it did best: adapt. All defense stations report ready, James announced. Operation Steel Rain is go. Sarah nodded. Send the signal. Let's show them why you don't threaten a species that evolved fighting predators. The first surprise for the Void Collective came when they attempted to bypass Earth's outer defense line. What their sensors had identified as debris fields from humanity's mining operations turned out to be sophisticated weapon platforms, disguised using technology reverse engineered from their own stealth systems. Thousands of railgun rounds, each enhanced with Aetheri crystal matrices, struck the leading edge of the alien fleet. Ships that could shrug off energy weapons found their shields disrupted by projectiles that operated on principles their defensive systems had never been designed to counter. But this was just the beginning. Enemy fleet is adjusting formation, James reported. They're adapting to our kinetic weapons. As expected, Sarah replied. Execute Phase 2. Across the solar system, humanity's true defense plan revealed itself. The Void Collective had expected to face a conventional defense, ships and stations arranged in tactical formations. Instead, they found themselves fighting the entire solar system. Automated asteroids, their cores replaced with massive engines, broke from their seemingly random orbits and accelerated toward the enemy fleet. Solar collectors, disguised as routine power-gathering stations, suddenly focused the sun's energy through Aetheri crystals, creating beams of coherent light that bypassed standard energy shields. But the real surprise came from the apparently primitive chemical rockets that had been launching from Earth in vast numbers over the past weeks. The Void Collective had dismissed them as desperate attempts to evacuate civilians. Now these rockets revealed themselves as carriers for millions of tiny crystals, each one containing a fragment of Aetheri consciousness merged with human eye. As these crystals attached themselves to enemy ships, they began to disrupt the very systems that made the Void Collective's technology possible. Shields fluctuated, weapons misfired, and communication systems dissolved into chaos. The enemy fleet is splitting up, James announced. They're trying to establish a containment pattern. Sarah's smile widened slightly. They still think they're fighting a conventional war. Signal all forces. Execute Steel Rain Primary. The human fleet, which had been holding position behind Mars, made its move. But instead of engaging in standard combat maneuvers, Earth's ships performed actions that no sensible spacefaring race would attempt. They dove into the debris fields they had created, using the chaos of their own weapons as cover. They executed slingshot maneuvers around planets and moons, achieving velocities that should have torn their ships apart. The Void Collective's combat computers, programmed with the collected tactical wisdom of 1,000 worlds, could not predict or counter the apparent madness of human battle strategies. Their ships, designed to fight in the clean, calculated patterns of space combat, found themselves caught in swirling battles that more resembled Earth's ancient sea fights than traditional space warfare. On the bridge of the Defiant, Sarah watched as humanity's apparently primitive tactics wreaked havoc on the galaxy's most advanced fleet. Status of the Aetheri integration. Crystal resonance at optimal levels, James reported. The merger of their consciousness with our defense systems is stable. They're successfully disrupting the enemy's quantum communications. This was humanity's greatest innovation, the ability to work with the Aetheri as true partners rather than simply using their technology. Where the Void Collective had sought to harvest the light being's essence by force, humanity had asked for their help and offered partnership in return. The battle raged across the solar system, a testament to humanity's unique approach to warfare. Where other species sought to eliminate chaos from combat, humans embraced it. Where advanced civilizations relied on computer-optimized tactics, Earth's forces utilized strategies that no rational AI would conceive. But the true turning point came when the Void Collective attempted to deploy their planet-killer weapons against Earth itself. They had expected the humans to sacrifice everything to protect their homeworld. Instead, they found their superweapons targeted by waves of small, agile craft, piloted by humans who had trained their entire lives to fly in atmospheric conditions far more challenging than space. Enemy flagship is changing position, James reported. They're attempting to communicate. Sarah raised an eyebrow. Put them through. The image that appeared on the main screen was both beautiful and terrible, a being composed of shifting darkness and reflected starlight, its form suggesting the combined evolutionary paths of a dozen harvested species. You fight like madmen, the Void Collective Admiral stated, its translated voice carrying traces of confusion and something that might have been respect. No species has ever. You turn your weaknesses into strengths, your primitive nature into advantage. That's because you never understood what makes us strong, Sarah replied. You look at our technology, our brief history as a spacefaring race, and you see primitives. What you don't see is that every human alive is the descendant of survivors. We exist because our ancestors refused to die, refused to submit, refused to accept that something bigger and stronger could decide their fate. The alien admiral was silent for a long moment. You protect the Aetheri. You risk everything for a species not your own. This is not efficient. No, Sarah agreed, but it's human. And if you continue this attack, you'll learn exactly what humanity does to those who threaten our friends. As if to emphasize her point, another wave of crystal-enhanced railgun rounds tore through a squadron of Void Collective ships that had strayed too close to Earth's defense perimeter. The human fleet, seemingly chaotic, but actually moving with carefully coordinated precision, continued to tighten its net around the increasingly fragmented enemy forces. You have a choice, Sarah continued. You can continue this battle, and we will continue to show you exactly why evolution on a death world produces warriors unlike anything you've ever faced. Or you can withdraw. Leave the Aetheri under our protection, and we can explore more productive ways for our civilizations to interact. The silence that followed stretched for what seemed like eternity. Around them, the battle continued to rage, but now there was a sense of something changing, of a paradigm shifting at the most fundamental level. Finally, the Void Collective Admiral spoke again. Perhaps there are things we did not understand about strength, about evolution, about persistence. Sarah allowed herself a genuine smile. That's the thing about being human. We never stop teaching those lessons to anyone who threatens what we protect. As the Void Collective fleet began its withdrawal, leaving behind the wreckage of hundreds of their most powerful ships, humanity had proven something that would forever change the galaxy's balance of power. Technology alone did not determine the outcome of conflicts. The will to persist, to adapt, to stand up for what was right. These primitive qualities could overcome any advantage. The nature of persistence had taught the galaxy's most feared power a lesson it would never forget. Never underestimate a species that had evolved on a world that demanded excellence just to survive. Never threaten those under their protection. And never, ever assume that technological superiority guarantees victory against the children of Earth. A new dawn. 1 year after the Battle of Sol, the crystalline spires of New Aetheria rose from the surface of Mars, their impossible geometries catching the sunlight and transforming it into dancing patterns that reminded Dr. Elena Santos of the first message she had decoded so long ago. The combined work of human engineering and aethery crystal crafting had transformed the red planet's equatorial region into something that belonged in a dream. "Still takes my breath away," Admiral Sarah Chen said, standing beside Elena in the observation dome. "To think, a year ago we were preparing for what everyone thought would be our last stand." Elena nodded, watching as streams of light, free aethery moving through their new home, wove between the crystal towers. "And now we're hosting the first Galactic Concordat. Sometimes I wonder if I'm dreaming." The Concordat was more than just a peace conference. It represented a fundamental shift in how the galaxy's civilizations viewed each other and themselves. Representatives from over 300 species would be attending, many of them emerging from isolation for the first time in centuries. The Great Hall where the Concordat would take place was itself a testament to the changes sweeping through known space. Built by human hands guided by aethery wisdom, its walls were living crystal that sang with stored memories and dreams. The chamber could accommodate beings of any size or composition, from energy forms to silicon-based life. "The Void Collective delegation has arrived," Captain Marcus Chen reported, approaching them with a data tablet. "They're different from what we expected." The delegation that entered the hall seemed to embody transformation itself. Where once the collective had been a nightmare of harvested biological elements forced into unity, now they appeared as beings of shadow and starlight, their forms suggesting harmony rather than forced assimilation. "We have learned," their lead representative announced, its voice carrying notes of humility that would have been unthinkable a year ago. "From those we once thought primitive, we have learned that true strength comes not from consuming the gifts of others, but from sharing in them." The aethery delegation arrived next, their light forms dancing through the crystal matrices that humans had helped them create. They had changed too. Not just survivors now, but teachers, sharing their understanding of energy and consciousness with races that once would have tried to harvest them. "Your species," the aethery speaker communicated to the assembled humans, "taught us that physical form does not determine destiny. That beings of light could learn from children of dust, and together create something greater than either could achieve alone." As more delegations arrived, some in ships, some in energy fields, some in forms that defied easy description, Elena felt the weight of the moment. Humanity, barely out of its cradle by galactic standards, had catalyzed something unprecedented. The signing of the Concordat itself was both an ending and a beginning. Its terms were revolutionary. Mutual defense pacts that protected developing civilizations, knowledge-sharing protocols that respected cultural sovereignty, and perhaps most importantly, recognition that diversity of form and function was not a weakness, but a source of strength. "There are those who still call us primitive," Admiral Chen addressed the assembly, her voice carrying across the chamber. "They point to our brief history among the stars, to our reliance on what they consider crude technology. But we have learned that primitive is not an insult. It is a reminder of where we came from, and what made us strong." She gestured to the gathered representatives. "On Earth, we have a concept called convergent evolution, different species developing similar traits because they work. But we also celebrate divergent evolution, different solutions to the same problems. The galaxy needs both. It needs the wisdom of ancient races and the fresh perspectives of young ones. It needs beings of pure energy and beings of solid matter. It needs those who create with light and those who build with steel." The Void Collective representative rose. "We once sought to force evolution along a single path, to harvest what we considered superior traits and discard the rest. The humans showed us the error of our ways not through superior technology, but through superior understanding. They proved that protecting diversity, even at great cost to oneself, creates strength that no amount of forced uniformity can match." As the formal proceedings continued, Elena found herself in one of the crystal gardens that dotted the complex. Here, human children played with young Aetheri, their laughter mixing with the musical tones of light beings learning to experience joy in new ways. Nearby, a group of former Void Collective scientists worked with human engineers, combining their understanding of quantum mechanics with Earth's primitive but innovative approaches. "Did you ever imagine this?" Dr. James Chen asked, joining her in the garden. "When you first decoded that distress signal, did you think it would lead to this?" Elena watched as a human child showed an Aetheri young one how to make shadow puppets, the light beings' attempts creating spectacular displays that had both species giggling. "No," she admitted. "But that's the beauty of it, isn't it? We didn't have to imagine it. We just had to be willing to try." The changes weren't limited to diplomatic relations. The combination of human ingenuity and alien wisdom had led to breakthroughs in every field. Diseases once thought incurable were being defeated by treatments that merged Aetheri energy manipulation with human medical science. Dead worlds were being revived using terraforming techniques that no one had thought possible. Even the fundamental understanding of physics was being rewritten as different species shared their perspectives on the universe's deepest mysteries. But perhaps the most profound change was in how the galaxy's civilizations viewed themselves and each other. The term primitive had lost its sting, becoming instead a reminder that every race had begun somewhere, had faced challenges, had found their own path to the stars. As the Concordat drew to a close, Admiral Chen found herself again in the observation dome, watching the sunset paint Mars' new crystal cities in shades of gold and red. The Aetheri's light forms danced through the spires, their joy evident in the patterns they created. In orbit above, ships of all designs and origins moved in harmony, elegant energy vessels alongside sturdy human craft, each contributing their own strength to the new galactic order. "We did something remarkable, didn't we?" Elena asked, joining her at the window. Sarah smiled. "We did what humans have always done. We faced something bigger than ourselves, and instead of backing down, we found a way to make it better. We took a galaxy that was dying of uniformity and reminded it how to dream." As night fell on Mars, the crystal cities began to glow with their own light. Human innovation and Aetheri essence combined to create something that had never existed before. It was neither purely organic nor purely energy, neither primitive nor advanced, but something new, something that spoke of possibilities yet to come. The galaxy was entering a new dawn, one where the wisdom of age and the audacity of youth worked together, where differences were celebrated rather than erased, and where being primitive was understood for what it truly was, not a mark of inferiority, but a reminder of the strength it takes to rise from dust and reach for the stars. And at the heart of this transformation stood humanity, still young, still learning, still reaching out to whatever lay beyond the next horizon. They had come into a galaxy that was dying of its own sophistication and showed it how to be new again. They had taken their primitive qualities, their adaptability, their determination, their willingness to stand up for others, and turned them into the foundations of a new kind of civilization. A civilization that looked to the future not with fear of what might be lost, but with hope for what might be found. A civilization that understood that true strength comes not from perfection, but from the courage to remain imperfect and keep trying anyway. The dawn of this new age painted the solar system in colors that had never been seen before, as humanity and its allies looked to the stars and saw not conquest or harvest or isolation, but endless possibilities waiting to be explored. Together,